we need to talk about what's happening in the airline sector. So, Alix, I've got a theory. If you want to know what's happening with the global economy, you don't ask an economist. Definitely don't ask an economist. Instead, you want to ask an airline CEO. Why do you want to ask an airline CEO? Think about it. They sit at the intersection of pretty much everything. Consumer demand, business confidence, global supply chains, the labor market, geopolitics, fuel prices. The list goes on and on and on. So are we heading for a soft landing with the global economy, or is the landing going to be a hard one? We've got the perfect people to ask that question too. The CEO of Delta is, of course, Ed Bastian. The CEO of Virgin Atlantic is Shai Weiss. Delta, remember, owns 49% of Virgin, and Delta's just posted Q3 earnings. Fellas, nice to see you.
Yeah, good to be with you.
So we were having a little chat in the green room beforehand. I talk to Shai every once in a while in London. When I talk to Shai, he talks to me about various things. But one of the things he talks to me about is the impact that he's had on you, Ed. In many ways, this can be demonstrated, but I think the most critical way it can be demonstrated is by what you're wearing on your feet. He tells me that he is responsible for you being cooler, for your footwear being better. He takes credit for all of this.
He does.
So we've got to clear this up before we start the interview.
Well,
is this true?
There's no question he gets a lot of the credit for me being cooler.
Okay.
That's
a good start.
The footwear, I'm not so sure. There's a lot of people that feel like they've taken ownership of my footwear of choice. So Shai has a line he has to stand in.
What is that? So that's a not really, actually.
I think
he's throwing some shade.
The only thing I would add to that, if you look at the timeline, Ed admits it happened in the last 5 years. We've known each other for 11 years. Go figure.
He was in the queue.
He's in the queue. Okay,
I'm needing to get him to start wearing ties, and then I'll maybe give him his.
I was going to ask about this. I don't think I've ever seen him in a tie, ever.
I think that's right.
Okay, I think we've resolved it. We've resolved this issue. Okay, everybody's talking about landings at the moment. So let's talk about landings. As I said at the beginning, this conversation kind of brings everything together. You guys see absolutely everything. And you've got a credit card business, you've got an oil refinery, you've got all of these things that allow you to figure out what is happening in the world right now. If you were to describe a landing that the US economy is going to have, the global economy is going to have, what kind of landing do you see?
Well, this has been the most forecasted recession. I've been in business over 40 years that I think I've ever seen. And as far as I'm concerned, I think we're going to have a good landing with respect to the confluence of financial variables we're talking about. We have a consumer in our country that is reasonably in good shape, particularly as you get to the upper end of the income strata. In our business specifically, air travel, 40% of our, 75% of our revenues come from the top 40% of consumers, right. Consumers that have household earnings of $100,000 a year or greater. And at Delta, that number is arguably even higher. In Virgin, I'd say it's also higher in terms of the higher percent.
Yep.
That cohort, and the Fed just released this data just last week, coincidentally, but we've been touting this for some time, accumulated over $30 trillion of net worth from real estate, the market, savings, from pre-pandemic to current times. So our consumer is in really, really good shape. The reality is that you got winners and losers in this economy, and the goods sector that people accelerated purchases during the pandemic aren't maybe doing as well. But if you live in the experience economy, who most of us do, it's doing quite well.
I think we need the Alix indicator for this, because I'm a Sky Miles Delta person. I took a lot of trips last year. I flew business class. I am what you're describing.
Yeah, I love you.
But don't love me yet, because we're not doing that this year. We're going to hunker down. We're saving. I mean, I feel like I'm a good example of sort of what you're trying to get at. How can you be so reliant that I'm going to keep spending?
Well, if you look at our planes are full. Our planes are full almost everywhere you go, particularly internationally. The international economy is still recovering from COVID. The other indicator I tell people is if you look at a statistic, you guys are about the math and the analytics. If you look at the airline industry, has a lot going on, to your point, Guy. There is one number in the airline industry that's proven resilient over 50 years, and that's the percent of money spent on air travel and the size of the economy.
Yeah.
And it's 1.3%. Year in and year out. It broke during the pandemic, obviously, because people couldn't travel. But that gap in 20 through 22 of people that wanted to travel, the inherent value of the size of the economy versus people that could, that gap was over $300 billion that people could not spend. So we're just now starting to get back to normalized trends. So it's going to continue to stay strong, I think, for years to come.
If I could just...
I don't think you've ever been this quiet, by the way.
This is good influence. This is really good influence I'm having on you.
He gets your shoes.
I'm just thinking about the Thai proposition here, and I don't know how to respond. But if I can just add, I think the U.S. is slightly different than what we're seeing in the U.K. And I think it's a story of two halves. If you look at our numbers, we're probably about 95% of 2019 in terms of overall travel. In terms of the consumer, the retail side of it, we're probably at 115% in terms of revenue and about 95% of demand. But on the corporate side, we're probably around 75%, and that still underlines a very strong recovery in the U.S. and a weaker recovery.
Do you think that's coming back? Like, what is happening here? Is this a permanent shift?
Yeah, and you know, we always think about, is this a structural or a transitory shift? It's hard to say because we're seeing both the tech sector, of course, the strike in the media and entertainment and the West Coast, and just a general sensation that things need to hunker down a bit because of this constant discussion on recession. So I think it's difficult to say. What we are seeing is longer booking cycles. So even the corporates are buying well in advance, and the shorter in bookings tend to, take it a bit more cautiously. But I think overall, both Ed and I would agree that we're just seeing the recovery of the international markets. There is a softer landing or a good landing, as Ed said, for the U.S. economy. Europe has got to be probably a year behind that. So there's so much more to bring it back to 2019 levels and beyond. I think it's really the beyond that is interesting.
Mike Wirth was sitting in that chair a few minutes ago. I said you were coming, Ed. He's like, ask him about the Sky Miles story.
He did. He actually did.
I love you too, Mike.
You rolled it out. You rolled out the changes. You've had to roll some of it back. What kind of feedback are you getting now in terms of you've got really loyal customers? Mm-hmm. They were obviously had their noses out of joint a little bit. Do you think you've got the balance right now?
You never get the balance rate in aggregate when you have so many different people with an opinion. The two things that we saw when we made the change, first of all, the reason we made the changes is because, and Alix, you fly us, you know this, there is a lot of demand for our premium product, our premium services, our clubs, our Delta One product, the telephone line, et cetera. We needed to rebalance because we had far more premium customers than ever, and we're investing in premium assets, but we just can't continue to keep up with the demand set that we have. Any individual looks at that as to how it's going to affect him or her, and so you're going to get a lot of opinions. There were some things that we did that I thought were maybe too aggressive in trying to get to that equilibrium quickly, and so we pulled back and we said we got to go at this at a much more measured pace, understanding as we build new premium clubs, new premium assets to allow the demand set to be satisfied maybe in a little bit better manner.
So to that point, I had to wait online to get into the lounge when I went to France in business class.
She was very upset about it.
I was very upset. It was definitely an entitled New Yorker moment for me at JFK. But what else are you looking at? Are there other things in the Sky Miles program that now is going to be on board for tweaking?
Well, the lounge access certainly was one of the important things. The lifetime, see, we took miles out of the equation. We've had this balance between miles. We're called Sky Miles.
You got to change the name?
No.
Sky Money.
No. But we are making it much more dollar denominated in terms of loyalty, and as compared to solely miles, which is what it historically had been. And we've been transitioning for quite a number of years, and so we've had an element of both. People have found it confusing trying to keep up miles and dollars, so we move pretty quickly. We've pulled back in some ways. People that have long time loyalty with the airline in terms of miles in seats, we're grandfathering and creating new statuses for them. So we're trying to find a good equilibrium here.
Shai, one of the things that occurred to me as I watched this unfold was what people are really saying is getting through an airport is really hard. They want to make that journey through the airport easier. Once they get on board fine. But getting through the airport is a tough.
Depends on who you fly, it's fine, yes?
Okay.
Good disclaimer. Nicely done.
When you look at the airports that you operate in, are you happy with the airports that you're dealing with right now? Terminal 3, we've got new scanners coming through. Are they going to work? Is the Terminal 3 experience what you would like it to be? Because a lot of what Ed's been talking about is that initial experience of going through the airport.
Indeed, and we look at journeys rather than just the point of flying. So end to end, and our impact, of course, is the greatest in our clubhouses, in our lounges that we share with Delta, and of course on the plane. But if we could see a better experience at airports, especially at Heathrow, but around the world, that would make a tremendous difference. And indeed, Terminal 3 at Heathrow is the home of Virgin, home of Delta, and it's the oldest terminal. It's over 60 years old. So we need to think of what next for that experience and how we can, with the new leadership team at Heathrow, make a new home for our customers. But overall, with safety, which I think is new systems and new machines, joining up the biometrics and a quicker passage of your baggage, there are many things we can do. But I wish we could control it from start to finish all over the world. That's never going to happen.
Yep. Ed, we started off the conversation talking about all the things you do, which gives you great visibility on what's happening with the economy. I was thinking about, we were talking about this morning. Is Delta a conglomerate? It's got an airline, it's got a refinery, it's got a card business, it's got a really big maintenance business. You put all this together. Is the whole fit logical? Can I think of Delta as a conglomerate? You said earlier on in the interview, we are an airline. Are you an airline, or are you just an airline?
We are an airline.
Yeah.
But we also appreciate the fact that the airline business has a lot of volatility to it.
Right. And this helps smooth that out.
And so what we've been after is trying to find a more diversified stream of earnings for stability for our investor base, for our employees, for our customers, so that we can ride through these challenging times, turbulent times that we inevitably have seen and will continue to see. So with the credit card revenues being a big part of it through American Express, through our MRO in terms of third-party servicing, through the work we're doing trying to control fuel. People think about the airlines as having a lot of factors outside of your control. It's implied a little bit in your question. We've taken a contrarian view for many years at Delta. We control much more and focus on things we can control as compared to things that we can't control, and trying to do a better job of managing that. And that's what you're seeing. So you're seeing, I wouldn't call it a conglomerate, but you're seeing an airline taking control of its future and its outcome. And as a result of that, the market also gives us value. We're the highest market cap in the world in terms of any airline out there, and also the top revenues.
Which brings us to geopolitics and sort of how to hedge that risk. And obviously what's happening in Israel has created a lot of strife within the industry. Shai, I know you're also Israeli, so this is a particularly vulnerable issue as well. Do we know, can we quantify yet what losing those the air traffic is going to do for earnings, et cetera?
Well, I'll start with that one. The situation in Israel, of course, after the atrocities of October the 7th is still unpredictable. So I think there are, right now, the major impact has been, of course, people are not flying into Israel, and because of that, they're not flying also to the area, into Jordan, into Egypt, into other locations. And there has been an immediate impact on the price of fuel, which has gone up, quite considerably since then. I think from here on, it depends on what the outcomes. If Israel can contain its war to the south and to Gaza and really taking out the Hamas, then that's one outcome. And if, God forbid, it becomes a much more of a regional conflict, then we don't know how it's going to impact. But I think, overall, war in the Middle East is always a dampening, but I don't think we've seen tremendous amount. We have 3 flights a day, I think, so with 2 flights a day. Delta has 3 flights a day to Israel, and of course we're not flying until it's safe to do so. But we'll have to see what the broader implications are.
Let's wrap it up. Ed, you're here in New York because you're getting a CEO of the Year award.
Thank you.
This evening. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What does that mean to you? What does that mean to the airline?
Well, first of all, it's because of the 100,000 women and men of Delta Airlines that I'm receiving that award. So on my behalf, I'm accepting it, but it's really for our team, because our team did an incredible job managing through the pandemic, and I think that was the reason why we were selected to receive this award. It's a great honor to be recognized by your peers across multiple industries, but it's really a great honor for our people, because I'm really proud, because they're the real heroes in my field. They came in every single day when people were told to stay home.
Yep.
We kept the airways open during the worst of times, putting our lives at risk to make certain that doctors and nurses and frontline responders could get to where they need to be. No one that was traveling during the pandemic wanted to travel. People were traveling because they had to travel. And it wasn't just Delta, it was the airlines as a whole that kept the airways open, that enabled our country to recover and manage through this. And 3 years later, it's remarkable. 3 years ago, we were down to only 10% of our revenues. This year, we just reported our third quarter results, record high in terms of revenues ever, because of the hard work they did during that period of time. And of course, the great loyalty we have from our customers.
Guys, it was great to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we cleared up the footwear issue.
Yeah.
But now the tie's the issue, so come
Ties
back.
the issue, so I'm working on ties with them. And
So you're going to take yours off?
Maybe an ascot. What do you think?
That I would pay good money to see.
I would even buy it for him.
There you go.
Me too.
hello.
I know what I'm.
It's a new fund created. Thank you very much, both.